We made it through the draft, Rube. I mean, that was quite a weekend.
It's so much fun. It's exhausting, but it's like, I mean, you're seeing like the birth of a new team. It's a really cool few days. It's one of the rare chances we have. We talked to Howie about 5 times all year, and 3 of them are during the draft. So, you get a lot of insight into what the franchise is thinking, not just by what they say, but by what they do. And that's what makes it so much fun.
Yeah, that's true. This is Eagle Eye brought to you by Car Shop, once certified used cars reconditioned like new. That's Car Shop, formerly Car Sense. This is Eagle Eye with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. I want to thank everyone for listening over the weekend. You never really know when you do a podcast on 3 straight days if people are going to have the fortitude to listen to it all. But not only did you guys listen to it, but everyone seemed to like it. So we appreciate that.
Now, one person didn't. I got a nasty note. No, we appreciate the feedback. Whether it's positive or negative, we love it, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, and over the next few months, when we hit some dead periods, we'll kind of let you guys dictate where this show goes at times. Because right now we have plenty to talk about. In the middle of June, we might not. So we'll kind of see where this goes. But today we have quite a few things to talk about. We're going to look at some free agent corner options for the Eagles, because as you may have noticed, they didn't exactly fix that position in the draft. Some winners and losers from the pre-existing roster, guys who you feel like they came out of the draft like, yes, or undrafted rookies. A few of those names have started to leak. We'll go through some of those names and which guys might have the best shot of making the team. We'll look at the NFC East, see how the Cowboys, Washington, and Giants did. And then we also have a DeVonta Smith over-under yards number that we're going to toss around at the end of the show. Let's start with free agent corners, because right now you have Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox, Zach McPherson, Craig James, Michael Jacquet,
your boy
Kevin
Kevin
Seymour, Jamison Houston. I mean, it's not a great group, and Howie's kind of hinted at them not being finished at the position. He talked about, the season doesn't start for a few months, and there are ways. I think he said there are other ways to skin a cat. There are. I mean, they can try to trade for someone, which we've seen them do before, or there are some options in free agency, and you looked at some of those options.
Yeah, it was interesting how he even mentioned Ronald Darby in 2017, who it was like a week into training camp. They made the Jordan Matthews trade. I'm not saying they're going to sign Ronald Darby. He's not available. He just signed a $30 million deal, but there are some guys available. And, I think he probably feels like there's no rush, because guys get cut, guys get, there's a lot of moving pieces at every position. You can find a guy, but there are some guys. Some are better fits than others. Some probably they can't afford, but I jotted down a list of 7 guys. You want to go through each one real quick? I'll do them alphabetically. Bashaud Breeland, he's 29. He's played a lot of football. He's really an up and down player. I mean, when he's good, he's really good, but he's very inconsistent. There was off the field stuff. The arrest certainly might not be something that they want to, you're building a culture with a new coach. I'm not sure he's the kind of guy, not that I know him, but just from what's been reported that, that they want to bring in. But Breeland, he's an outside corner, and he started almost 100 games in his career, so he's really experienced.
I was surprised he's only 29 when you said that. I mean, he's played a lot.
Yeah. I kind of think he's not super likely. I think the off-field stuff probably disqualifies him. I don't know exactly how Nick Sirianni's thinking about that, but he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's going to want to, at least to start off with a new program. And I'm not saying Breeland's a bad guy. I don't know him, but just some of the stuff that's been reported, it makes you wonder. The next name is a young guy, Garion Conley, one of many Ohio State corners, first round picks scattered throughout the league. wasn't bad with the Raiders, but they traded him to the Texans,
He
who
wasn't good either.
he wasn't good, but he wasn't terrible. Um, he was disappointing. I mean, he was disappointing certainly. But he goes to Houston. They trade, I think, a 3rd round pick for him. He plays 8 games, and they invested a 3rd round pick in him, and they just were not interested in bringing him back. Missed all of last year with an ankle. He'd be cheap.
Yeah, I mean, cheap. And I like that idea, though, because he's cheap, but there's upside. I mean, I don't know at what point that first round label like wears off. Like there's a certain
3rd
allure
team, I
to
think
it.
it's off.
Yeah, probably. But there's obviously talent in there somewhere. He has the body that you think Jonathan Gannon is going to want in his outside corners. I like that idea. I think it's a kind of a low risk, high reward type move. I mean, you wouldn't have to give him very much. I don't know
Right.
if that solves the problem.
But he is 25, and I would guess there's an outside chance that he could reinvent his career here, and new system and new scheme. He's still a young guy. I think it's unlikely that he would become a long-term answer, but there is a chance, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a chance with him, whereas like some of the older guys on this list, they are just stopgaps. They're not. There's no chance that they're going to be like a long-term fix. And at least with Conley, while it's probably a very unlikely chance, it's probably a long shot, his age leaves that possibility open.
Exactly. Next guy's Casey Hayward Jr. He's 31. He's going to be 32 before the season starts. His best days, and he was really, really good for a long time. Led the NFL in interceptions one year. I think it was 2016 with the Chargers. 2-time Pro Bowler. But once corners hit that 31, 32 and they start declining, they don't come back. So it's, that would be a little scary. I mean, he would give you savvy and veteran experience, and he knows where to be. He's just not the player he used to be.
He's not. I think I would be okay with it though. And there is the Nick Sirianni connection. They were both in San Diego and then LA for you together. So that might make some sense. He like is obviously a stopgap. He'd be like, we need a guy for a year, which look, I think any of these guys at this point would sign 1-year contracts, whether they're young or old, but he probably would be just 1 year, get us through this season, offer some veteran leadership for a young group aside from Slay, and you kind of roll that way. And you hope that Zach McPherson is good enough to overtake him. Like you hope that at some point the rookie's ready to go. But when you draft a kid in the 4th round, I don't think there's any guarantee that he's gonna even be able to play or be a starter for that. You know what I mean? I don't even think you can count on him to play at all, let alone be a starter. So yeah. I think they need to sign someone. And I like the Hayward idea.
Yeah, it's a good name, and you're just looking for a guy to provide some. I mean, even if he goes out and plays the way Nnamdi did as a veteran, like Nnamdi, the problem was that they paid him so much money, but he wasn't, I mean, he was functional, but especially the first year, but with a minimum contract. And all these guys, if they're on the street now, like you said, they're probably going to take a 1-year deal. They're not getting multi-year huge deals at this point. I put Craven on here. I think that's a long shot, especially with a new coaching staff coming in. They don't know Craven. And he's mainly an inside player, and he's always hurt. But I like him. I like what I thought he was. He just never really was able to stay healthy, stay on the field, and play consistent football. But I threw him out there.
Yeah, I think we and fans like Craven more than the Eagles ever have. And now with the new staff, I mean, if he was going to be here, I think he'd already be signed.
I would agree with that. But I threw it out there just because he's a familiar name. If Jim Schwartz is still here, maybe. Craven had that interception to Drew Brees in the playoffs, man. I thought they were going to win that game.
I like him as a player. I think he's a tough nickel corner.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think he has some ball skills. I think he has some playmaking ability, but the injuries have really kind of hurt him. I mean, he hasn't been out on the field. And I think if he was on the field, I think he would have had a shot to kind of solidify that nickel corner role, and he never did.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the way he plays, it's going to be hard for him to ever stay healthy. He's
And
just
last year, I mean, they were planning on having him be the nickel until NRC was so cheap, and they thought, I mean, that signing obviously didn't work out, but they weren't planning on signing Nicole Roby-Coleman last year. It was just like they looked around and thought, this guy's 1.3 million. Like let's sign him. And then Cravon got bumped down the depth chart.
I did not put NRC on the list.
Yeah, probably right.
Jason McCourty, another just older guy, on the decline. Once a really, really good player. I don't know if that's the direction you want to go. I think you want to, he could get you through a year and obviously give you some of those. Any of these older guys are going to give you that leadership and veteran experience. But how well against the receivers in the NFC East that have piled up all of a sudden, some really good receivers. I don't know if you want to put 33-year-old Jason, he'll be 34 this summer, 34-year-old Jason McCourty out there.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't.
There you have it in a nutshell. Steven Nelson, interesting name, makes some sense.
He's the best player on this list right now.
Yeah. Same high school as Ben Smith, former Eagles first round pick. He played really well for the Chiefs. The Steelers gave him a big contract and then cut him and saved $14 million. And he wanted out of there, whatever. The thing that worries me about him is money, and it's probably why he's still on the street. He's 28, so he's in his prime. He's a good player. I'm guessing he wants more money than teams really want to spend at this point, which could be an issue because the Eagles don't have it. But if it came down to just the player, he'd be right at the top of my list.
Yeah, I think of these guys on the list, he's the best player right now. And it was unfortunate for him. He got a late start in free agency because they waited a while to cut him, I believe. So interesting name.
Yeah,
he's gonna have to take a 1-year deal somewhere. I don't know if he'd be willing to do it here in a scheme that he can't see on tape yet. As I'm assuming he's gonna have offers. That's another thing. Like if he has the same offer here or a defense that's established, where is he going? If it's a 1-year deal, he wants to make himself look good. Then he could maybe do it here. We don't know, but that would be my fear with him, or from his perspective, is why would I sign with a new defensive coordinator, a defense I don't know what exactly it's going to look like. Maybe Gannon can sell him.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if he can. Playmaker, good blitzer. I'd be good with that. Brian Poole's the next guy on the list, 28 as well. Pretty good player with the Jets. He's pretty much a slot. I'm not sure it's the direction they'd want to go.
I think he can play outside a little bit.
A little bit. He was with Denard Wilson, the Eagles secondary coach with the Jets the last 2 years. It's a good name.
Yeah, I mean, that connection means a lot. And he was someone, I remember, like, when I put these lists together of connections, he was someone on that list. I'm surprised he's still available. He's not as good as Steven Nelson, but he's still relatively young, right? He's under 30.
He's 28.
Right? He's like 28, 29.
He's 28, yep.
28, yeah. So surprised he's still out there. I would think he would have gotten a deal by now. He'd be on the short list, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Next name is Byron Maxwell. No, just kidding. That's a different guy from the Seahawks. Richard Sherman. I just think it's a real long shot just because I'd love to see it. We talked about this yesterday. It'd be really fun to have him, but I can't imagine that he's looking to kind of wind down his career with a team that doesn't really have a playoff chance. He wants to go somewhere he has a chance to win. He might only play one more year, maybe a couple. He's still pretty good. Didn't play bad. He was a Pro Bowler just 2 years ago, whatever that means. But, he's also 33, just turned 33. I think it would be fun. I think it would be a great experience for the young corners to be around a guy like that. But I don't think it's the kind of program he's looking for, and I would guess they can't afford him.
Yeah, I think he's still negotiating his own deals. He's been playing
his own agent.
Yeah. It's probably unlikely. He would fit pretty well, I think, in what they want to do here defensively. I mean, it'd be fun for us. He's a fun guy,
Yeah.
a smart guy. Yeah, I mean, I doubt it, but it's worth a phone call for the Eagles, I think.
It'd be Howie calling Richard Sherman himself would be an interesting conversation. I'd
Yeah.
love to be a fly on the wall of that room. So those are the names. Who would you say is at the top of your, if you could sign, well, I'm not going to say if you could sign any of them because we'd probably both say Richard Sherman, but who do you think is most likely? Who do you think they're going to sign?
Most likely Brian Poole. Although it makes me kind of curious why it hasn't happened yet, if there's the connection. Steven Nelson's the guy I'd try to sign.
I'm going to go Nelson.
Yeah, I'd try to sign him. And maybe you wait it out and you see, like, if he's not getting the offers he wants, maybe you can sneak in there and get him. I don't think he's going to get market value. I think that ship has kind of sailed. I think teams, for the most part, have signed their guys for market or above market. So if you can get him on the cheap or relatively on the cheap, they'd have to play around with that contract. They'd have to do their tricks with the dummy years, and they'd have to eat some of that money next year. But they could make it work. And I mean, they need something, obviously. I actually think a trade is almost as likely as a free agent signing.
I would agree with that. I think that is likely. I think that once the draft is over, I think that, and the draft just ended a couple of days ago, I think all these guys are waiting, now that teams didn't get cornerbacks, there's going to be teams out there like the Eagles that didn't get cornerbacks. I think their price is going to be up here for like the next couple of weeks, and then it's going to start to drop as, teams like, I'm not paying that. That's just how the market works. So I wouldn't expect anything to happen immediately because these guys are still asking for a lot of money, most likely. But I would think in the next few weeks, we'll have an idea what they're going to do.
Yeah, it was funny. Yesterday, I was putting together a depth chart after the draft, and doing corner, you go, all right, so Slay's the one outside guy. I put Avante as the nickel because I think that's where he should be. It means your other starting outside corner is probably Craig James. I mean, Craig James.
That'd be Shaquette.
No, it'd be Craig James.
No, he's a special teamer. I just don't like him at corner, but yeah, it would be based on experience.
I mean, it'd be Craig James. It wouldn't be Jaquette. What from
I
Michael
was a
Jaquette
coach,
would make you put him at outside corner from last year?
so much upside,
Only upside.
physical, confident, willing to go out there on an island against the best receivers in football. And
Willing, not able.
I didn't say able. I said willing.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it would
but
be Craig James.
I guess it would be. I mean, enough of these special teamers playing cornerback, though. That's what he is.
I agree. They need to sign someone or trade for someone. But my point is, I don't think they drafted a corner in the 4th round. I don't think you can just say you play him.
No.
Now,
3rd round, maybe. 2nd round, definitely. 4th round, it's possible a guy could come in and have a tremendous training camp and pick this stuff up and show he belongs, but it's a tough ask.
Yeah, and I was asked yesterday how many starters they got out of this draft for this year, and the answer is 1.
Most likely.
It's 1 and maybe 2 if Zach McPherson can start.
And I mean, I could see a scenario where Landon Dickerson is starting if he's healthy and they have injuries and,
Yeah, I mean, but like projected.
Yes.
I'm not going to project injuries.
With this team, you might have to.
I don't have to project them. They just happen. All right. We wanted to move on to the winners and losers from the draft. So guys who are on the roster who were sitting at home watching it and they either feel really good about what happened or not so good about what happened. And I've jotted down a few names here, but I'll let you go first. How about a winner from this draft?
Well, I jotted down a few as well. I mean, Jalen Hurts is the obvious one because they didn't draft a quarterback.
And they drafted him a receiver and a possible center that he already knows.
Right. And I mean, you give him one of the best receivers in the draft. But I wrote down Kayvon Wallace. I mean, they didn't take a safety. He's a guy that we don't really know much about, but I think he's going to get a chance to to show what he can do. And I think he's got a chance to be a player. But if they had taken a safety in the second round, and tells you what they think of him. But the fact that they didn't, I think it's good for him.
Yeah, he's on my list too. I had 4 guys on my list. Hurts and Wallace are 2 of them. Another one for me is DeVonta. Obviously they didn't draft a corner until the 4th round. It looks like DeVonta is going to be a starter, whether that's outside or as a nickel this year.
I still think they would start him over Craig James outside, as even considering how last year went. Different system, maybe less pressure on the corners. But he doesn't really seem to fit into Gannon. But again, first year for Gannon. Maddox isn't awful. The biggest problem, Maddox is so much like Cravon, and he's like injuries. He's not really suited to outside. The whole thing with him was, he's small, but he can leap, but he's just not comfortable playing outside corner. He's not able to take his skills and translate them into that position. He hasn't been yet, at least beyond the injuries. So I don't think it'll be either of them ultimately, but yeah, as far as Avante, he's going to be a free agent. They haven't, can't imagine they've tried to make any move to sign him to a deal. So it's kind of a lame duck. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, but he's going to play this year. There are how many other options now?
Well, as we sit here in May, the first week of May, yes, but a lot can happen. Don't play football for 4 months.
Sure, but unless they
surprise
had
me
2 corners.
It wouldn't surprise me. They can sign guys, they can trade guys. I wouldn't be stunned if Avante Maddox isn't here.
Really?
Really?
Well, he does have a more expensive contract this year. He's like $2 million, so I guess they could try to trade. But if they trade, I don't have any corners now. Do you want to trade him?
I just think there's a lot that's going to happen between now and opening day at cornerback.
Okay. Yeah. But for the draft, he's a winner.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. Do you have anyone else?
Well,
I have TJ Edwards.
Yeah, you can make that case. I put down just the young receivers just because they didn't draft another wide receiver after DeVonta. I think that, they didn't overhaul the position. So I think the young guys, still, the Quezes and the Hightowers, and I don't know if you want to put Fulgham in there, but they didn't overhaul the position. They didn't take 3 receivers in the first 4 rounds. So I think those guys are going to get a fair look come camp. So I put them down too.
Okay. I actually put Hightower on the loser just because it was one, even though it was just 1, it bumps him down. And I think he was already on the bubble.
Yeah, I agree with him. But, just number wise, you need a ton of them in camp. And, they signed a couple undrafted, but I think, but he'll be in camp. So he'll have a chance to, it's not like, wow, this guy's not even going to make it to camp. So he'll have a chance to show what he can do. But certainly DeVonta, you can only keep so many. J-Jaw might even be a winner. I still think he's a long shot to make the team, but new coach who's a wide receivers coach who might see, look, this guy's got size. He can run okay. He's had good hands and historically. New scheme, new coaches. Maybe we can, get this guy jump started. If you draft 3 receivers, you're thinking J-Jaw's got no shot, but who knows? Stranger things have happened.
It'd be strange though.
It would. Who do you have on your losers list?
The easiest one for me was Boston Scott. I know Kenneth Gainwell was only a 5th round pick, but he does a lot of the same things Boston does, but we think probably better.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's the idea, right? So Boston was the number 2, and maybe he'll be the number 2. I think you'd have to say he's number 2 right now because Gainwell's a rookie, but they have a lot of the same skills. So I think that's not a good sign for Boston.
Yeah, and I put him on my list as well. I think he'll be here. I think he'll be part of the team, but it's possible his role won't be. He's a different kind of player because he's not like a classic backup running back. He's played well when he's had to start when Miles has been hurt, but it's all against the Giants. I don't know what that means. It's always against the Giants, but yeah, I would say in the big picture, it's not good for Boston. I put Zach Ertz on there just because,
Still here?
I'm sorry,
He's still here?
he's still here. That's basically it. He's still here. It's not like they drafted a tight end and they say, all right, now we can really get rid of you. You know, we're sitting here a few days after the draft. Everyone thought he was going to be gone last weekend. Maybe there's a team out there that wanted a tight end that didn't get one in the draft, and now they're going to, make a move for him. But I think with each passing day, each passing week, he can't be happy. So I put him on the list as well.
It's funny, for most of these guys, we'd consider them losers if the Eagles take a player
Right
at their position, and because they didn't, Zach's a loser. Yeah, that's true. I have a couple more names on my list. Hassan Ridgeway.
Yeah, he's on my list as well.
Yeah, signed a 1-year deal after another season of injuries, and then they go out and draft 2 defensive tackles. I mean, how many defensive tackles are they going to keep?
And he's very cuttable. You only got 80,000 guaranteed.
Yeah.
So he's
very
cuttable. Yeah. So
and I mean, the most they'll keep is 5, and that's probably pushing it. So you have Fletch, Hargrave, Milton Williams is making the team as a 3rd-round pick. We'll see about Tuilopo. But he's probably going to make the team unless there's an injury thing that you can redshirt him. But yeah, Ridgeway is the one. And even if Ridgeway is on the team, he just lost snaps.
Tuipulotu, right?
Yeah, what did I say? Did I mispronounce his name?
You said Tuilopo.
Oh, it's Tuipulotu.
Yeah. Tuipulotu. I'm just make sure I get it right. But yeah, I would anticipate Ridgeway won't be here unless Tuipulotu's and he's a 6, so who knows? He could come in and be totally overmatched. And Ridgeway's solid when he's healthy. I mean, he's a solid player. But they like to keep their draft picks, and I'm guessing he'll make the team over Ridgeway for a 4th spot, and there won't be a 5th spot. That's my guess.
Possible, yeah. And they can also have like a Raekwon Williams on the practice squad and kind of play that game too. One of my last losers was Nate Herbig, because they draft Landon Dickerson, and if he's healthy, he's going to be, at some point, he's going to be the backup at, you would think, just about every interior position. And that means Herbig's not. And I think Herbig was that. I mean, I think Herbig was the first guy in at guard or center, and now he's not.
Yeah, that's pretty simple. And, I mean, Herbig's a high effort guy. But I mean, Landon Dickerson is in a different, category than Nate Herbig. And I think Nate Herbig hung in there considering he had to play. He was playing different positions. He didn't have a training camp or didn't have preseason games. I mean, he did his best, but hadn't played at all, I think, as a rookie. But yeah, Dickerson's a different class of player. So certainly he's a loser.
You have anyone else on your list?
No, that was about it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear cut. And we'll see with the undrafted rookies, which we want to get into now, because some of these guys, historically, 1 or 2 of these undrafted guys end up making the team every year. And it's normally at positions where there's some sort of need. So I'm just going to go through these names, and these have all just been based off reports. The Eagles have not announced their undrafted class yet, but we'll start off with Jamie Newman, the quarterback from, I guess, technically from Georgia. He never played there. He played at Wake Forest, 6'3", 234 pounds. I like this signing. There's something there with Newman, and the Eagles don't have a 3rd quarterback right now.
Yeah, you can make a case that he's 3rd on the depth chart just by default. Interesting story. I mean, he transferred to Georgia and then opted out. I think he graduated from Wake. I think he was a graduate transfer, I believe. So I guess we have to call him. I don't know what we call him. Like I say, from Georgia.
Yeah, it's weird. Is he always going to be like? Is Georgia always going to be next to his name, and he never played there? It's weird.
I don't know.
He's listed as a Georgia player.
Yeah, I mean they they signed him out of Georgia. I don't know. It's a weird deal, but I'll say Wake Forest. Played pretty well in 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 60, but not super accurate, 60% for a college quarterback.
Wake Forest offense is wacky, though.
Yeah, it is. Interesting name. I think he's obviously a long shot to ever play. Who was the last undrafted player that the Eagles brought in, quarterback? I mean, Brad Gable, who actually started a game or ever played.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone else, but it'll be fun to see him in camp and see how he does.
Yeah, and they needed someone to be the third. Yeah, and there's a chance he could end up on the practice squad and
I think that's
go that route. Yeah. The next guy, Trayvon Grimes from Florida. I was surprised he didn't get drafted. Pretty good player. Yeah, he's huge. He's 6'4", 240. Had a pretty good year last year, and there's obviously the connection with Brian Johnson, who was the OC at Florida and is now the Eagles quarterbacks coach. I like him. I mean, the problem there is that there's a numbers crunch at receiver.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Grimes is he only had 38 catches, but he had 9 touchdowns, which is pretty good production. I mean, that's something that kind of makes you take notice in that size at 6'4" and a connection to Brian Johnson. So he's got a lot going for him.
Yeah, he does. And I'm looking at Hakeem Butler thinking, he's a tight end. He has size for it. I mean, you'd have to kind of overhaul him, but just the size is something I get why they're bringing him in. Jamon Osborne from Texas A&M, another bigger receiver, 6'2", 217. He opted out last year, so he didn't have that. If he didn't opt out, I think he might have gotten drafted because in 19 he had a good season, 66 or 872, 5 touchdowns. I think it was such a good receiver class that he kind of got forgotten. But he's an interesting name, and it's interesting that the two receivers we know about are bigger players because they drafted not a smaller player, but not like a prototypical X receiver. He's played the X, but he's not that prototype. And these two guys are. Right.
And, we'll see. I mean, generally these guys are camp legs, practice squad type guys who have to work their way up. But, you can see pretty early in training camp if one of these guys is comfortable, if he fits the offense, if he's making plays, if the ball finds him. It's really a tough transition for these undrafted wide receivers, though. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for them to make it. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
but they're good names. I mean, they're not slappies.
No, not at all. And the Eagles historically have gone out of their way to sign undrafted players and give them money. And they've found some good players that way for a while. I mean, they haven't found stars, but they found, argue stars like Corey Clement and, Nate Herbig, Destiny Vio, guys who have played for them in seasons. So the numbers tell you one of these guys is going to end up on the team and playing for them here or there.
I think I did the 10 best undrafted players in Eagles history, right? Did I do that at one point?
I'm sure you did.
Right, like 7 times, right?
Yeah.
Who do you got next?
Jack Stoll from Nebraska, the tight end, 6'4", 247, played in Nebraska, so the numbers aren't great. 61 catches for 657 yards and 6 touchdowns in his career there. But the Eagles needed tight ends. So it's funny. I kept putting tight ends in my mock drafts, and I had people tell me it wasn't a need, but it is a need. It's absolutely a need. If we kind of assume that Zach Ertz isn't going to be here, then they have Dallas Goedert and Caleb Wilson, Jason Kroom, Hakeem Butler. But they're going to use 2 tight end sets this year, and they have one. We think they're going to have one of those tight ends still here.
Richard Rodgers, a phone call away.
He is, but he's not here yet.
Batting helmet and his Louisville Slugger.
Yeah, he's not here yet, though.
No, he's not. I think Stoll, just because of the position, and again, you kind of throw the numbers out because of the program he was in. They're just not. A tight end's not going to put up big numbers in Nebraska. Generally, you would think a Nebraska tight end is a really good blocker, but this kid's like 245. So I don't know about that, but if he can catch the ball, I mean, if he can catch the ball and block a little bit and get in someone's way, I'll have a chance to make the team. Just if they don't sign somebody else.
Yeah, last year our favorite player we thought he would have had a really good shot to eventually stick around and be on the
Noah to
team.
go.
Noah Togoa, Tangiai. Well, we should say his name right every once in a while. And he ends up in Indy, and he has a role for them. And I think tight end, just by the position, you're right, has a chance here. We have a few offensive linemen. Harry Kreider from Indiana. Honestly, I don't know much about him. 6'3", 307, guard and center the last 2 years, team captain in 2020. And Coyote Owosika from Buffalo, listed as a tackle at Buffalo, but might be more of a guard, offers some versatility. I think both of those guys are long shots, but either one of them could end up on a practice squad if Stout likes them enough.
They're both 6'3", 307. It's interesting. I like Kreider more as a center, from the film I've watched on Indiana's offensive line. No, they do like keeping these guys. They'll always be like 3 offensive linemen on the practice squad, and they just like having a lot of them who know the system. Last year they needed them all. Get these guys comfortable. They always bring in smart guys who can pick things up. You're not going to find, there's going to be a reason these guys weren't drafted. Too small, too slow, not athletic enough, not strong enough. But they're all going to be smart and be able to pick things up. And then the other stuff you can work on. And, hopefully by year 2, if you have to get them in a game, you can get them in a game.
Yeah. And the last one that we know about right now, Jaquan Bailey from Iowa State, really productive there in his last 3 seasons, but he has the undersize. He's like the same size as Teron Jackson, 6'2", 246. Typically, I'd like, if you're drafting late or you have these developmental guys, you want like a longer player who can fill a body. But hey, who knows? And I think they do have a little bit of a need at end too.
Yeah, I like this signing. He was really productive. He had 25, 26 sacks.
Yeah.
I think you noted that he had 7+ sacks in 3 straight years, which is unusual. A lot of these guys you see like 1 sack, 3 sacks, 17 sacks or whatever. They have that big breakout year. So I like the consistency. Iowa State playing at a high level. So interesting name to keep an eye on, Jaquan Bailey. Who makes the team?
I think the best shot there is the tight end or the quarterback. Just by and that's what you have to kind of do with these undrafted guys, because some of them, the linemen have really no shot.
Right. If, unless there's some crazy, slew of injuries, which we've seen, I'm going to go with Bailey. I'm going to go with Bailey making the team. I think I think the quarterback will be on the practice squad. He's not going to make the 53. The tight end's got a shot, but I'm going to go with Jaquan Bailey. He's my guy. He's my guy for the 53.
Interesting. Yeah. Last year, the Eagles they just kept 2 tight ends on the active roster, and then they got screwed when they cut Noah Tangiai and he leaves. That their plan was to make him the 3rd tight end. So we'll see if they learn from that mistake.
Went and played for Nick Sirianni in Indianapolis.
He did.
But, and one thing to keep in mind is that there's not going to be that roster flexibility this year where you can just, bring guys on and off the practice squad without subjecting them to the waiver process. So it's going to be a little different. I'm assuming that'll be the case as far as we know. Hey, beer, wings, sports, PJ Whelihan's is the place to go for all 3 of your favorite things. Local sports fans gather together at PJ's to catch all the action. Go to pjspub.com to find your nearest location.
Okay, we've talked so much about the Eagles, and we don't want to lose sight of the teams in the division. Where do you want to start? Which team?
Oh, I don't know. Let's start with doesn't matter. Let's start with the Giants.
The Giants. All right. So we know what the Giants did in the first round because they were sitting there at number 11 and the Eagles jump in front of them to take DeVonta Smith. Dave Gettleman hasn't come out and said it yet, but I think it's pretty clear that they were going to take DeVonta Smith at 11. So they get a really nice package from Chicago. They move down to number 20 and they take Kadarius Toney, who's the receiver from Florida, certainly explosive, not as good a player as DeVonta Smith. And to me, not as good a player as Rashad Bateman, who went right in that range as well. What did you make of their first round movement from Trader Dave?
Well, I thought he did a good job maximizing value. I like Tony. I think that's a little early for him at 20. Um, I thought he was a guy that might be there in the second round. At least a couple of weeks ago, I thought at 37 he might be a guy within range of the Eagles. His stock seemed to go up over the last week or so, but I think he's a good player. I think 20 is too soon for him.
Yeah, maybe. They drafted the trait there, and the trait is explosiveness. And you put they have all of a sudden they have some weapons on that offense if Daniel Jones can get him the football.
And if Saquon's healthy, I mean that's a guy who caught 80 passes his rookie year, whatever it was. We've seen him go a long way against the Eagles with the ball in his hands. So, they've signed guys, they've drafted guys, they got guys coming back from injuries. That offense is potentially pretty dangerous.
Yeah. And then in the second round, they got Azeez Ojulari at number 50. And there were medical concerns about him. That's why he was available at number 50. But you're talking about a guy who a lot of people thought might be the best rusher in this draft. So that's good value if the medical really does check out.
Yeah, I like the player. Kind of like the Eagles' second round pick. It's going to come down to whether he's healthy. But
not as significant as of an investment either at number 50.
That's true. And his history isn't as bad as extensive, but yeah, I like the pick there. I like Ojulari at 50.
Yeah. And then in the third round, they end up trading in front of the Eagles. They kind of get payback and they take Aaron Robinson from UCF at number 71. He was a guy who I thought was an option for the Eagles in the second round at 37. They got really good value with their second and third round picks here.
Yeah, that's that was the source of Tom Donahoe's ire, I guess. I'm surprised they got him at 71. I think that's really good value there. I'm surprised he was still there.
Yeah, and I think it's probably because he's viewed as maybe nickel only, and his value was suffered because of that. But good player, and I like what they did here. And what I think that them trading around as much as they did, and everyone joked about Dave Gettleman had never traded back, and then he becomes Trader Dave, and it becomes a funny thing. But he did a good job, I thought he really maximized value. They picked up a first and a fourth rounder next year. So if we're going to talk about the Eagles picking up picks, the Giants did it too for a draft that's going to be deeper and cleaner next year.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I thought he did a good job. And I give Dave Gettleman credit because I don't know how long of a leash he has here, and a lot of GMs in his position would not have traded back. I think they would have stuck where they, and it's funny that the first time he picks to trade back, it could hurt him because, a lot of GMs in this position just try to do what's best for the team right now to save their jobs. And he didn't do that. I think he did what was best for the Giants. So I give him credit for that.
Yeah. He kind of comes across as a clown, but I thought it was a decent draft for them.
I did too. Let's go to the Cowboys next. They drafted a ton of players, and it started in the first round. They trade down with the Eagles from 10 to 12, and they pick up Micah Parsons. Good player, obviously. I don't think that's the most ideal situation. I think when we're talking about the Cowboys in the pre-draft process, possibly picking up Surtain or J.C. Horn, I think that would have been a better situation for them.
Yeah, I do too. I think in general, I think their first 6 picks were all defense.
Yeah.
And they had 3 threes, so they had 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. Day 1, day 2, they're all defense. But in the first 4 rounds, 6 players, 2 linebackers, 2 corners, an interior defensive lineman, and an edge. So they could talk all they want about best available. They have a terrible defense, and they moved to start repairing it. And I don't blame them.
I don't either, because right now that offense is good, and if Dak's healthy, their window is open.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see Parsons and what he is. I mean, the Eagles will be seeing him. You would think for a long time. You know, if he's as good as Bill, then I mean, I don't think it's their biggest need. Well, and Kelvin Joseph is certainly going to determine whether they, you know, whether they went the right way there. But certainly going to be a different defense than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and it was a low bar. They were pathetic defensively last year. It's amazing to me how many resources they've put into linebacker. It's really like the anti-Eagles. The Eagles aren't putting any resources in, and the Cowboys, I mean, Jalen Smith, Van Der Esch, and now Micah Parsons within a relatively short period of time. It's an interesting way to build a team. It's not the way I would go, but I like Parsons as a player. And, you know, Parsons and Kelvin Joseph, they come with their question marks about character. And there were reasons that some teams were a little lukewarm on these players. So it's not surprising the Cowboys started their draft that way.
Jerry loves them guys.
He does. And there's value there. Look, Kelvin Joseph, people were kind of laughing when I suggested the Eagles would take him at 37, but the player's good enough. The player's absolutely good enough. So I like that. I like that from them. And then in the third round, they get Osa Odigizua from UCLA, who's another undersized defensive tackle, but pass rush ability. And that's something they need from the interior of their line.
Yeah, they go tackle and corner in the third round. 3 picks there.
And then Jabril Cox later, pretty good value that late.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how that defense transforms and how all the new pieces come together. And because it's not as easy as just stockpiling draft picks. I mean, they've got to fit your scheme. They've got to play, you know, they've got to understand the NFL game. I mean, it's, you know, they've got some talented guys, but how it all comes together and how quickly that process is. I mean, this could be a bad defense again this year, depending on how long it takes for these guys to, you know, to assimilate and get it all figured out.
Yeah, you'd assume it will be better just because it's hard to imagine it being any worse, right?
Yeah. It was the first offensive player they took, I guess, was they took a tackle in the 4th round.
Yeah.
Josh Ball from Marshall.
It took them a while to draft an offensive player.
Yeah.
I totally get
it. Yeah,
it.
It makes sense. It makes sense on paper. We'll see how it all comes together.
How about Washington? We'll look at them.
Might be the best team in the division.
Yeah, I think they probably are.
Well, I mean, they are the defending division champs, but doesn't really
You're really going out on a limb there, huh?
I know. I forgot about that, but no, I like what they did. Go ahead.
I mean, it feels like they finally have some stability with Ron Rivera. And I don't know if this draft is going to work out. I don't know if ultimately they're going to be, you know, a championship contender. They, you know, the quarterback position is still a problem for them long term, I think, but they're putting a good team around what they have. I mean, Jamin Davis, I thought, was an interesting pick. He kind of was a hot name later in this process. And I think a lot of people thought they were going to go offensive lineman in the 1st round, and they didn't. They took a linebacker, but then they get Samuel Cosme in the 2nd round, who tests as well as anyone.
And I didn't think he'd be there at 51. I thought
exactly
that was big for them to get Davis in the 1st round at 19 and then get Cosme at 51. You know, you're getting 2 guys who could contribute to that team right off the bat.
Yeah. And they get a corner, then they go receiver and Diami Brown, who our buddy Chris Sims loves. I think he had Diami Brown as the 2nd best receiver in this draft. So they have a lot of receivers there now.
Chris is so out there. I love it. His opinions don't line up with everyone else's, but that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah. I don't think he's crazy on Brown either.
No, I think he's got a chance to be pretty good. I love the Minnesota cornerback just because his name is so, it's St. Just, but there's no period. It's just it's like a hyphen. And Yeah, he's played a lot of hockey in his life.
And he was, he would have been in that range for the Eagles where they took Milton Williams.
Yeah. Yeah, he was available. Yeah, I like what they did. Not a flashy draft, but to get Davis and Cosme in the first 51 picks is a really good start, and we'll see about the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have taken Davis there, but the fact that then they got Cosme in the second round that late kind of makes up for it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you know you're going to get Cosme at 51, you're okay taking a linebacker at 19. But I don't know if they knew that or if they just kind of guessed right or lucked out. But it turned out okay for him.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to finish up here, DeVonta Smith, we have some points bet odds for him. He has the ninth shortest odds to become the rookie of the year, which is interesting. I mean, normally that's a quarterback award, but hey, it could happen. What is he at? He's at plus 1,600. So that's not bad odds. But I wanted to get to his over-under total, which is for receiving yards, 750 and a half. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting number. I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over because I think if Ertz isn't here, which I don't expect him to be, I don't know where all the catches are going to go. I don't think there's a clear, in most years they're going to have five guys with 500 or 600 yards. They haven't had anybody have 1,000 yards since Macklin in 14. Matthews got 3 yards off one year, but I think in 15. But I think he'll be over. I think he'll be between 9 and 1,000.
Wow. So you're talking about him possibly setting the Eagles rookie record.
What's the record?
912. Deshaun.
I know Keith Jackson caught 81 balls. I don't think he's going to match that.
Yeah, he probably won't catch 81. That year, Keith Jackson had 869 yards.
Okay. See, I would have guessed him, but I think he'll be right around Deshaun's numbers. Okay. Yeah, as a rookie.
Let me run down the top 5 in receiving yards for Eagles rookies. Deshaun is first at 912. Jordan Matthews second in 2014 with 872. Keith Jackson 88 had 869. Charlie Young had 854 and 73. And Macklin in 09 had 773.
Charlie Young, all pro first team as a rookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll be at the top of that group. I think he'll be right at the top of that group, and he should be. It's not like he's got, who's going to have all the catches? Who's going to have all the yards? If Ertz
and the thing about DeVonta is that he's already so polished. You know what I mean? Like it's not like they drafted some physical freak and they have to teach him how to play football. DeVonta Smith knows how, and I wrote about it today, actually. His route running is already superb. It's already next level. And he was doing those things in college. So it's not like I don't think there's going to be a big learning curve for him. I'd expect him to be really good from the jump.
And he's got a relationship with the quarterback. They've played together. And there's 17 games. So 9-12 is, in 17 games is more attainable than 9-12 and 16 games. In 17 game season, you know what? He might have 1,000. I'm going to say he'll have 1,000.
You know what's weird? All the numbers, it's going to be hard to recalibrate. What's a 1,000-yard season now? What's a 4,000 yard passing season? We're going to have to recalibrate everything. Records too. I mean, what's a 9-8 team now?
Yeah, it's you're gonna have to think differently, and I think we'll kind of lean on yards per game, maybe more, at least initially.
Yeah, and it's not like this hasn't happened before, but I've never been around it when it's happened, so it's weird for me.
I haven't been around it when it's happened, but because it was a 16 game season, longer than any other length season.
Yeah.
I think since 70. When did they go? 77 or 78? Right? I think 78.
Yeah.
It went to 16 from 14. But to get 1,000-yard season, you only need 58 yards a game. So it's not like that's like some, unattainable. I mean, if I think Devontae should get 58 yards a game. Might be 2 passes to him.
It's a shame in a way because I like having those mental markers. Like 1,000 yards means something, and it's going to change all that.
Yeah, but we'll just have to deal with it.
I hate change. I don't like it. Yeah. Anything else before we wrap this up?
No, big win for the Sixers. Playoffs coming up. This team has such a knack for taking a 23-point lead, turning it into a 1-point lead, and then winning. Drives you crazy. You're like
taking years off my life. It's
yeah. But I like the fact that Doc, no matter what the score, he sticks to his rotation, and the starters are not playing excessive minutes. So like the starters build up these big leads. The bench comes in as a unit. The lead disappears, but those guys aren't playing a lot of minutes. So they have a chance to get that 1 seed. They're game up on the Nets now. So
yeah, we'll see.
Exciting
the
stuff.
Phillies are driving me nuts. They're
was that ball a home run
Sixers
or not?
Making
2 nights ago, was that ball a home run that they reviewed? And did you get a good look at that?
Not really. I don't know. What'd you think?
I think it might have been a home run. There certainly wasn't conclusive evidence there wasn't.
No, it's amazing these things still happen. You would think you'd be able to tell for sure.
Yeah, maybe they put like a GPS on the baseball or something. That's probably next.
Yeah.
But
the series with the Mets was fun. There were some tempers flaring. Always love that.
You know what? One thing that bothers me about replay is that, like, the moment of jubilation for fans, it's just not there because, like, we won the game, or did we? Let's wait for the review. It's just like, it's just not the same. And it's like, you know, the review comes and, you know, the ump does that and then you celebrate. It's just, I don't know. It's like that moment when the ball goes over the fence, or, I mean, a ball goes over the fence, generally it's a home run, but just whether a guy's safe or out, you know, whether a ball's you know, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of replay. And I think it's taken away something, that instant reaction part of the game in some sense.
Yeah, I get why we have it. I think there should be a more streamlined process. It's amazing to me that it's this kind of wonky right now. Fix it.
Remember when they put in replay reviews for defensive pass interference, and no matter how bad it was, they never overturned it. Like, we just never did. It was so stupid. Why even have the rule? It was ridiculous. Anyway, but
all right, if you enjoyed the Eagle Eye podcast, rate, subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like, subscribe button there. Last word, Reuben, you get it.
Everybody have a great couple days. We'll see you soon.